Yeah, you were having like a heart to heart with Trukon after like a fight. Like these two guys just went to war, and then this old fucking French man is like, "Okay, let's go, guys. Come on, let's fucking move here." Or
You're sounding
like,
like a
dude,
little
shut
bit
your
of
mouth.
Stipe and Joe Biden right there.
After all the the shitty job you guys have done, you're gonna tell my fighter to not talk to his opponent after he just won? Like, go fuck yourself, man.
Yeah,
Seriously.
no, that was a little bit kind of.
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
He's dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tight as Alpra.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Everyday Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan. The Everyday Jiu-Jitsu Podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu-Jitsu. Today, I have with me my buddy and student, Adam Primetime Posener. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for joining. Before we
100%.
get started, please like, share, subscribe, leave comments. And if you want to support the show, check out the links in the bottom. So, Adam, coming off a fresh win in Montreal, we flew out there and we fought a guy named, well, I didn't fight him. You fought him. I just sort of sat there and watched. And you took on a guy named Trukon Carson from
Carson, yeah.
the Carolinas, right? South Carolina, I believe.
Yeah, one of the two.
South Carolina, North Carolina. It's one of the Carolinas. And yeah, he was a tough guy. You went in there, you finished him by armbar. You had a buzzer beater armbar. Like 5 seconds left. It was crazy. You dominated the match, but he was obviously, incredibly skilled. I would say he's your toughest opponent that you've had, right? Like true knockout power, good submission defense for the most part, right? Until the end when he was getting kind of desperate. But man, like a tough opponent for you, and you really, really put an exclamation mark on the end of that fight. Trying to make a statement for yourself. So. How do you feel now? A couple of weeks have gone by since the fight.
Yeah, no, now that the arm bars kind of died down a little bit, right? We're back to normal life. Yeah, no, the guy was a very tough opponent, right? He was undefeated. He actually had two regional titles out in North Carolina, or one of the Carolinas, as you said earlier.
I feel like I should know that,
yeah.
but I don't know that.
I don't even know off the top of my head. I think it's just Carolina.
Yeah.
It's like top or bottom, you know?
Yeah. And he was a bare knuckle boxer, Muay Thai fighter as well, right?
Yeah, no, he had a bunch of cool things, right? Fighting in bare knuckles, no joke. Not just anybody fights in bare knuckle. You don't find the typical trash MMA fighter that does bare knuckle, right? Like if you do bare knuckle and you come to MMA, I feel like you're gonna be legit or at least tough and a hard out. And he definitely was that. And I think definitely it was a very, very good performance on my end. And obviously the buzzer beater armbar went pretty viral on Fight Pass. Actually, I don't know if you know him or not, but UFC fighter Mike Malott actually messaged me about that fight. So he invited me out to Niagara, which I'm definitely planning to do in the future. But yeah, no, that was an awesome performance.
Yeah, that's great. And now you're getting noticed for that, right? Like you're undefeated now. And he was an undefeated fighter as well, right? You were 3-0 and now you're 4-0 and he was 4-0 as well. So,
a lot at stake.
Yeah. And I've seen you coming up, you've been very active over the last couple of years, ever since your first amateur fight. And you have had some matches where we're like, man, this guy doesn't belong in here with you. You would just like breeze through the guy. I can remember when I was a white belt once, I was like a white belt 4-stripe. And then there was like two white belt divisions. Like it was like an intermediate one and an advanced one. And the advanced division also
based on time.
What's that?
Like based on time?
Kind of based on time. Yeah. And, I remember, there was a couple of there was some blue belts in that division too. And I was kind of like concerned because it was one of my first competitions. I asked my coach like, hey, which division should I sign up in? Should I go into the more advanced division or should I stick with, I don't even think I had 4 stripes. I think I had 2 stripes, but I was just like decently talented for such a new grappler
early on.
And I went in there and I actually signed up for the lower tier division. And I just breezed through everyone. And it was like, at the end, I was like, man, that actually really sucked because I felt like I held
Yeah.
back. I felt like I wanted tougher opponents, and that was kind of a learning lesson for me. You know, it's probably like after you train hard for somebody, you don't know what they feel like, you don't know what really how good they are, and then you show up and then you just absolutely destroy them without any resistance. Like that's
Oh,
happened for you,
100%.
you know, and
Yeah.
it kind of leaves like an unsatisfying feeling, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of it's just like, you think about this for months on end and all these big feelings you have and all that. And just to go out there and get a first round finish. I mean, like, depending on the opponent, like when I fought that H2O guy
Yeah.
right before this one, I felt that was like one where I'm like, holy, like I got split open on the side of my head, like the top of my head. I still have a bump from it. Like the hair won't grow back over that spot. So I guess I just have a permanent bald spot. But yeah, no, like that was one where I'm like, okay, I'm okay with a first round finish in that one. But no, most of my fights, like honestly, I mean, they're fairly quick, and this was probably longer than all of those combined. So it was definitely a cool feeling.
Yeah, that was the previous fight. Was it Francisco Lepore? Is that the guy's name? Something like
Yeah,
that.
Francesco Lapore or
Francesco
something like
Lepore.
that.
Yeah, that guy was tough
Francesco
too.
Lapore,
You know,
yeah.
your last two fights have been against tough fighters, and you submitted both of them. You know, you're getting quickly known for your submissions inside the
Yeah, yeah.
cage, and not just submitting guys, but like dominating them almost
Leading up to
in like a Rory McDonald type fashion, like or GSP. Like they can't.
yeah, just cleaning up, right? Like you look at
Yeah,
Rory in his first, like I think he was like got to like 9, 10-0, and he was just like breezing through everybody.
yeah,
Like obviously, I mean, I don't think I was doing it to the same level, but at the same time, at that time, Rory was fighting. He wasn't fighting the same caliber of guys I was. So I think definitely the start has definitely been similar.
yeah.
And hey, if it keeps going, obviously Rory made it to the top of the UFC, so I think we're headed for some big things.
For sure. And you just have that ability. Um, every now and then you'll see an MMA fighter with this ability that is so the person's able to get in on a takedown. And like once you get in on someone's hips, they can't get you off. Right. And then from there, you're able to just dictate where the rest of the round goes, whether you do end up. Yeah, whether you do end up getting a submission or you just control them until the end of the round while you're rattling off submission attempts or you're trying to strike, it's like you still won the round. And that's a very, very valuable tool for a MMA fighter to be able to dictate
100%.
where the fight goes, right? Like, I have never seen you get out wrestled against anybody your size in the gym,
Yeah.
and also in MMA. Like, no one's been able to deal with your wrestling.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my game has just been like I haven't even fully shown what I can do, even in my jiu-jitsu in most regards. Like,
Yeah,
obviously, yourself and
I know
everyone
that.
at the gym, everyone at the gym knows that. But I've really most of my subs have been like rear naked strangles,
Rear naked
right?
chokes.
Like one I've done one arm triangle, one Darce choke, and then now an arm bar. So we're starting to see a little more as a professional, but like as an amateur, it's just like rear naked choke, rear naked
Yeah.
choke, rear naked choke, rear naked choke. And then now we're starting to branch out a little bit. And there's a lot that I haven't even shown, right? Like
Oh, I
even in
know.
my wrestling game, ironically, I feel like there's a lot of wrestling tools that I haven't had to use yet. And I feel like overall, I've only really shown 40% of my game up to this point.
I would 100% agree. You know, like I always said your front heads are probably your most dangerous submissions, honestly. But obviously your back attacks, as we've seen, when you get on someone's back, it's very difficult for them
Gone
to get
pretty
out.
well.
And you have a really well-versed Kimura game as well. Like you have submissions from the
Yeah.
guard, not just arm bars, but your triangles are good too. So it's
Triangles.
just a matter of time before I think we can start to see some of these tools. It's just that you don't really need to use them because you're constantly shooting in on the
same
hips.
situations.
Yeah, you're not getting into those situations. Your blueprint is basically, get in on the hips. It converts to a body lock of some sort, or you put them on the fence and then get them down, and they expose their back. And I think it's because and correct me if I'm wrong, but like in MMA, it seems that the current meta is like if someone's on your back, if somebody mounts you or if someone takes you down, like you expose your back in order to get up. Would you say that that's pretty accurate from a defensive point of
Yeah,
view?
no, I think like definitely in certain situations, like getting to your knees, like some sort of like chest to back position, is John Carlo Bedoni would call it, would be like any like front headlock, turtle. Just because then like there, it's like much easier to stand up, right? It's easier to stand up on your knees than when you're laying flat on your back, and I feel like that's probably one of the bigger reasons why I feel like most people end up giving their back. So
Yeah.
that's why I feel like most of the times we've ended up on people's back.
Yeah.
And, it's resulted in a lot of rear nakeds and resulted in a Darce choke. I could have had a couple guillotines in the last one, but give you a little funny story. I already told you, but, it'll be for the show. But, like, for like 30 minutes before that fight, I literally lost circulation in my right hand.
Yeah.
Because, like, the guy that wrapped my hand, like, had all my fingers together. Like, if you're watching on YouTube, your fingers are together, and if you're just listening, usually you have your fingers split apart. Like, you're gonna like spread your hand as wide as you can. That's normally what you do. But this guy decided to have my hand pressed together, and even like had my pinky finger slightly elevated onto my ring finger.
Oh God.
And yeah, so like it was a workout just to open my pinky finger away from my ring finger. And then for like most of that fight, I could not get a sufficient grip on any of my strangles.
Yeah,
right?
you were
Like
saying.
that's why like I felt like a lot of it was just like that, right? I felt like the guillotines weren't working because of that. The rear nakeds weren't working, and then and when I was doing the armbar in the third, I'm like, screw it, I'm just gonna try and get my leg free to kick him in the head, and then all of a sudden I armbarred him, and the armbar heard around the world, right? So I thought we were going the distance, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to relive like the last couple seconds of that fight, you were dominating him everywhere. Like you had taken him down, taken his back multiple times. He had some good strikes. Like he's dangerous, and he was.
No, he definitely was. I did not want to stand with that guy for too long.
Yeah, and he was actually dishing out strikes from his back too, and then
Yeah.
You I think you had him in a front head, and you're like, fuck it, I'm jumping this guillotine. I want to see if I could finish. I think there was like 30 seconds, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that.
Where you
yeah,
jump.
but there's the same thing. I couldn't connect my hands though.
Yeah.
Right? Like it literally, like I felt like I was getting over like this big hill.
Right.
To connect this grip for the strangle. And like I thought I had it, right? I thought I was under his neck. My leg, I wrapped the closed guard in that situation.
Yeah.
I thought I had everything in, and I just could not get my grip sufficiently, and then I'm like, oh shit. And then all of a sudden when he started throwing, I'm just like,
then he popped out.
I mean, I saw mostly the strikes, and then like all of a sudden, boom, armbar happened.
Well, you're very good at framing the open guard in an MMA context anyway. So there's like I think there's like 10 seconds left when he popped his head out of that guillotine and he was over top of you.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, I guess I'm finishing this fight on my back. And he was coming forward so far, he wasn't really in balance. And then I think like you kind of dropped your hips and pivoted at the same time, and he kind of fell into the trap, right? And his arm was extended, and
he was like very swinging big, trying to get the big finish, but at the same time, then I was just like, okay.
He didn't have a choice, right? Like he basically had to.
No, you have to in that situation.
Yeah.
Anyone would have to.
Yeah, and as soon as
a very tricky situation,
right? And it was very unlikely he was going to be able to hit a knockout on you in the last 10 seconds. And then as soon as you threw your hips up and went belly down, he was already tapping, and the referee actually didn't catch the tap. He was tapping for
he didn't.
2 or 3 seconds or so, and you were like. You said you didn't even feel it. You just kept trying to crank it off, right? Obviously in the moment.
Well, no, I didn't even know, because like I just went for the armbar, and then part of me heard a little bit of the crowd. Part of me actually heard you a little bit say that you got it. And then I'm like, screw it. There's only a couple seconds left. I'm going to try this. And then I apparently on the broadcast, when I watched it back on Fight Pass, Faber Glace, one of the commentators, was saying that they were complaining that I didn't let the arm go. And I'm like, well, the ref didn't stop me.
Yeah.
It's
not a kids Jiu Jitsu tournament. It's fucking professional.
Yeah, we're not 5-year-olds. We're we're both on the verge of a win for either of us could, or a win for him especially, could have got him on the Ultimate Fighter, because I saw like a thing he applied for the Ultimate Fighter, and with a win he probably could have got it, right? He had the personality, he had
Yeah.
the record, the fights, the entertainment, right? So like there was definitely a lot on the line there, but you can't just like fingertip tap when
No.
you're in a belly down armbar and expect the
No.
ref to see it.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of it was like the ref just tried to let it go as long as he could, because he's like, you're at the end of the fight. You want to make it to the end? And then he realized, no, it's not going to come quick enough. And then I feel like that was why he kind of stopped the fight a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, 1 second you're getting pummeled from the close guard. The next second you're throwing up a belly down armbar. You can't see the guy. You know, the rule is not you stop when the guy taps. The rule is you stop when the referee pries you off of him, right? Like there's
Yeah, and I felt like I did that on the most part, considering
Oh
a
yeah.
belly down armbar is not easy to get out of. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to untangle when you're holding your arm as tight as you can, and your legs are over their head and their torso, and you're
Mhm.
doing a belly down armbar. But I mean, I don't know. I thought it was a bit weird, but I'm like, at the same time, it was a little bit both the referee's fault and the opponent's fault for not making the tap clear enough. But he
Yeah.
also like did a little like leg wiggle, leg kick sort of thing to make the ref see, and I guess that's what the ref saw. I don't know.
Right, and I think that shows, you to be able to hit a move like that, it's a rare move to hit in MMA. It shows to just as like a coach, it shows for me the level of mechanics that you have, because it's not easy to
Yeah,
control.
understanding.
It's not easy to control someone's arm, especially with like a linear submission like an armbar in
No.
in an MMA situation where there's strikes happening and you're mixing it all together and it's slippery as fuck. There's no
Yeah,
rash guards,
like
like
it
it's
was right at the end of the fight. It wasn't like I got it in the first minute where
yeah.
we're cold and dry, right? Like that was at the end of the fight. That was a fairly decently paced fight.
Right,
Where I
right.
mean, I definitely fatigued after that fight, but and got tired. But hey, get it done, right?
For sure. Do you think you could have gone 5 rounds?
I don't know if I would have went five that night, but at the same time, you never know in the moment, right? Like I feel like a lot of it was like as soon as the fight was over, that's where my body just kind of shut down. It was weird, right? Like
Yeah.
I felt like as soon as that fight was over, the Montreal crowd actually cheered for me, which I was kind of surprised, to be honest.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to be fairly neutral, but I guess, I don't know. I guess I fought there before and I made a good impression, so they started liking me. But I think a lot of that was just like as soon as I hit a celly a little bit, and then I was just like, my body just turned off.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but at the same time, it's like preparing for a 3 round fight and a 5 round fight is just like a whole different ball game. Like
Yeah.
those 10 minutes after 15 minutes makes the world of a difference. So it's like I found that was just like I was mostly preparing for three, mentally, physically, and all that. But if I prepare for five, I know I can do five 100%.
Yeah, last time you came in when you fought Lepore and you were booed because you're the kid from out west fighting
Yeah.
the hometown guy. In this case, the Trukon is an American, right? So
Yeah.
you'd still be the Canadian favorite, and I think it's kind of like that old uh, the what they said in Gladiator, where it's like you can win over the crowd, right? Even if you're not a favorite coming in,
Yeah.
if your performance is spectacular, and like you're a nice, good-looking young kid, like you're marketable, you can win the crowd. And
For
by
sure.
the end, yeah, definitely, if not after the last fight, by this fight, the Montreal crowd absolutely has you have their respect, right? And
Oh, yeah.
and they know that how skilled you are and how dominant you are on the ground. I want to go and talk about, because you had mentioned, the gloves weren't wrapped the way you wanted, but that wasn't the
Yeah.
only obstacle that we had. I just want to talk and shit a little
Oh,
bit on the
gosh.
Montreal Commission. If that is
Oh, geez.
if that is the name of the organization, I don't even know what it's called. I assume it's like the
Yeah.
Montreal Athletic
Yeah,
Commission,
it's like
but
the Quebec something,
Quebec,
or it's like the
whatever.
Lotto Commission or something.
Some
There's like some name that like
yeah, some
they
French
told me
Canadian
about, because it was
bullshit.
funny. Yeah,
Anyways,
like it was so weird because like Faber messaged me right before my flight to Montreal. He's like, "Hey man, the weigh-ins are at the casino at 12, and the commission needs you here at 10, and you have to do all these things." So I'm like, basically, like, I'll get into the little weigh-in story. Again, we'll get into the fight day obstacles too, but the weigh-in obstacles were a story. And like, so we get to the weigh-ins. Some guy uh takes me to the weigh-ins, and I'm in the same car with like, we're in this like tight little typical car, right? And like, there's like me and like three other people, right? There's me, Mac Larson, the BFL champ at 170, and his and Ramil. So we were all going to the weigh-ins, and we're doing like these medicals that take forever. And we were doing the medicals, whatever, right? I don't mind doing medicals before weigh-ins, but you shouldn't have us just sitting around for 45 minutes just to do a little show. And they were late too, right? They said the weigh-ins were going to start at 12. They had us there at 10:30. So I had to wait for 10:30
Yeah.
just to wait around until 12.
And you're just
So I'm
suffering this entire time. Like, you're not eating, you're thirsty as
Yeah.
fuck, you're depleted, you're starving yourself.
Drained.
You're literally like you're literally like half dead. You know what I mean? Like, you're
Yeah,
not,
pretty much.
and they're
And you
just
have to
making
keep
you wait
this
around.
feeling for like 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was two fighters, forgot their names. I think one of the two guys before me, right? The guy from Ontario, Amin, if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
Right, Amin Al-Malik, and Kareem, the guy that Mitch fought. They showed up right at 12. So we have to wait for them to do their medicals before the Quebec Athletic Commission would start doing any sort of weigh-in stuff. So like, they started weigh-ins like 10, 15 minutes late. And then the announcer dude who's like running the weigh-ins is like just rambling about like random bullshit, ironically. And like, they're just rambling. He's just rambling. He's like, thank you guys all for being here. Thanks for watching on Instagram Live. Thanks for this. Thanks to Daniel LaFawn for this. And I'd be like,
just blowing all the people who put on the show, basically.
yeah, basically. And then like,
Hey,
especially because I was right in the middle too.
Before you continued, because I
Yeah.
wasn't there at the weigh-ins, I flew in the next day. But did they do like did they recognize that they're on stolen native land when they did the weigh-ins? Do they do that over there, or they don't do that over there? Do they?
No,
That's
not
a very
really.
that's a very liberal West Coast thing to do, I feel, or like Ontario thing to do. I don't think they do that in Montreal. In fact, they don't want anything to do with this country. They want to separate.
No,
from
they
us.
don't want anything to do with Canada. Like, the
Yeah.
thing is, like, if you don't know
kinda
French,
base, to be
or at least a
honest.
little bit of French, it is pretty base. They look at you differently, I feel
Yeah.
like. If you don't know French, like, I remember just like walking to like the gas station
Yeah.
beside the hotel room, and I said, hey, can I come grab something? Because like, they're around closing time anyway, so I'm like, maybe they'll just let me in. I'll be like, can you you can ask me what you want, and then I said, I don't remember what it was, but they said, can you get something? And I'm like, can I get something? And then they'd be like, I don't know what that is. And I'd be like, can you give me 2 minutes and I'll look? And then they let me in. But this guy had such a disdained look on his face.
Yeah.
I'm like,
You're
come
English
on,
speaking.
man. Like, yeah. So I'm like, why are you like looking at me?
And he probably thought you were a native, to be honest.
Yeah, probably. I mean, they all, they're all in their own world, I feel like, but they're all pretty based. So
They are, yeah. They don't want anything to do with the rest of Canada, and sometimes I don't blame them. But go on with the weigh-in story.
Yeah, the weigh-in story. So I think I was at the point where the guy was just announcing forever, right? So the guy was, so like, I was right in the middle. So like, they were going like in order of fights. So they did the main event, co-main event, featured fight before that, and then it was me. So either way, I was kind of screwed, because if they go from the main event backwards, then I'm in the middle. And if they go from the bottom up, I'm still in the middle. So
yeah.
I'm still like, I'm like in the worst spot in terms of like weighing in an order, right? Because like, and everyone's like taking their sweet time. I'm like, can you hurry up? It makes like 10 minutes feel so long.
Yeah.
Whereas like out here in BC, you basically just get like, everyone gets like a specific weigh-in time, and everyone just shows up to weigh in at that certain time. So for example, like at BFL or Battlefield Fight League, the promotion out here, right? You get like, they'll tell you, okay, arrive at this place at 1:30 or something, right? And they tell your opponent to come at like 1:35. And they have everyone like weigh in face off, whatever, at their own separate times. And then you have your certain time to do your medicals and then your pre-fight interviews and all that stuff. But pretty much it's all like, I don't know, I like it a little bit better. But the thing that I hate about it is in BC, like Vancouver traffic is terrible at 1, 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
So it's like takes like an hour to get there, hour to get back, which is like an hour less of weight cutting time, an hour more of suffer time, and then it's an hour less of recovery time. So that's the kind of crappy part about it. But with Montreal, especially this one, it was worse because it'd be like you're going to a place that's 15 minutes away, yet it takes 30.
Mm.
And especially when you're like moving at 1 millimeter a second, right? Like it's just the traffic is so slow.
Mm.
So I found that like, I don't know, I kind of found it a bit weird doing it there. Cause like when we went there in August, I think it was, when we fought that Lepore fight, the weigh-ins were in the hotel room. So like I could like go down basically right at weigh-in time.
Yeah.
And I could like take a guess of like, because again, they do, like I said earlier, they do the reverse order. So they start main event weigh-in fighters go first, and then co-main, and then they go down the list. So I'm like, okay, so I'll probably be like one of the last guys to weigh in because I was pretty early on that card. I was like the 4th fight on that one. So I'm like, okay, I probably even show up 12:15. So I'm just like waiting up there. I show up 12:15, and then 5 minutes later, I'm on the scales. It was awesome. But with this casino one, right, because it was in a casino, and they actually, the security guy asked for my ID too.
Yeah.
Didn't believe I was 20 years old. So that was the whole thing because like the same commentator guy, Favorite Glaze, saw me dealing with the security guy and be like, do you have an ID? He's like, you need an ID, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm fighting on this card. I have to be there. And he'd be like, no, you need an ID. So I'm like, does like a picture on my phone work? And they'd be like, yeah, that'll work. So then I show him the picture on my phone, and then he calls like the head security guy in French, of course, probably because I thought I was native or something. I don't know. They're super based either way. And then, yeah, so eventually it worked. And then like, it became like a whole thing. Because I was in the car with some dude and Mac and Ramil. So they all went off. I was there by myself trying to figure out, navigate around where this was. And then from there, I made it. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you need to fill out these papers, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, no, we have like an hour and a half. I can like sit here if I want to.
Yeah.
But I will give them the fact they gave like a nice little like, they gave like a gift bag. Like they gave like these like magnesium pills. They gave like a couple protein samples. They actually gave this shirt, which is pretty cool. The Samurai BFL shirt. I don't think that's pretty cool.
Mm.
But yeah, no, apart from that, that's the little, I guess that's my weigh-in story.
Yeah, I mean, and then the next day at the fights, things went even weirder. Like we got there.
That just was like,
yeah. So for those who don't know, some of the things that go on behind the scenes when you go see an MMA show, like I think this was the first time that the Montreal casino had an MMA
hosted
show.
Like a fight event. Yeah,
they had previously done boxing and they do shows there, and it's a cool venue. Like it's a really nice room.
Very.
Yeah, it's a nice building, right? Like very modern. It looks cool, but the logistics behind getting fighters into the arena, getting them ready for their fights, warming up, and then going down. You had mentioned that the guy fucked up your wraps, right? Which is a huge obstacle in itself.
Yeah, because like you can't feel your right hand, right? Imagine you're fighting the toughest guy you fought. You're fighting this undefeated killer that I fought, who's fought in bare knuckle boxing. Yeah, and you can't feel your right hand.
Yeah, and
right, like that's.
And he, you felt like you couldn't use strangles or certain grips, and your hands going numb. And usually your dad does your wraps, but this, I think the thought process behind getting this guy to do your wraps is like, well, who knows? Maybe one day your dad won't be there, and so we need to get used to other people doing your wraps.
I feel like the idea, because like in the UFC, they have the commissioners do the wrap. Like I don't know if you know Cut Mad Brad Tate in the UFC or not, but like he's like, for example, a guy like him does wraps. Right. And like the samurai gloves also fit a little weird. Like
they're really wide, right? You said it was really wide.
Yeah, they're very wide, right? And like the thing is, like, you only get one try to fit your gloves.
Yeah.
Like you don't get like, I remember, I know I'm going ahead of the day, but like the day after, right? The day after will be a story too. We'll talk about that after we talk about fight day Friday. But yeah, no, I remember like the commissioners got mad at a guy for trying 2 pairs of gloves on. They'd be like, "You're not glove shopping." They said you're not
You're
glove
not
shopping.
glove
And
shopping, English.
I'd be like, man, we're about to fight. Like, why are we fitting our gloves right before we're about to step out there?
Well, I know, right? And so
Like,
we get there and we're like, okay, where do we get set up? Where's the warm-up area? They take us into this. The best way I could describe it would be like if a singer was going to perform at one of these venues,
yeah,
they go to
like a stage room.
their like green room or whatever you want to call it. And we're talking
green rooms.
it was maybe like 4 feet wide and like 10 feet long.
Yeah.
And there was
Yeah.
us, the
4
Willette
fighters
brothers, who are both fighting on the card, and then 2 other fighters, I think, and
because both Ouellette brothers fought.
Right.
So
And
that was the 2 fighters, and then there's that Florida guy that fought Tommy Morrison in the co-main event.
and all of our corners. So this room is jam-packed. Plus there's like swivel chairs and like there's no room in there. You can't do any kind of a warm-up. And then we're like, okay, well, where are we warming up? And they're like, well, there's a place downstairs where you can warm up. And we go down there and there's no mats. It's carpet and a black curtain, like a very small black curtain separating you and Trukon. So you can hear him banging pads on the other side. He's screaming and we're like, what the fuck? And there's no groundwork. Like we assessed the situation quickly and we were like, okay, let's go down to the cage and roll around until they kick us out.
There.
So we got like a good like 10, 15 minutes of work, but this was hours before you fought. So it's not really a warm up. And then we talked to the commission. We're like, so where exactly are we warming up? And they're like, oh, didn't you see the warm up area downstairs? We're like, yeah, when can we go use that? They're like, 5 minutes before the fight. So these fucking guys, these guys brutal. Wanted us to warm up 5 minutes before a professional MMA fight, biggest fight of your life.
Yeah.
Without mats, right next to the person. You could practically, like, you could see him and his corners every now and then because they would just like move and like
pop out of the curtain,
move from behind the curtain. You'd see them, and I'm like, this is fucking, this is so ridiculous. And obviously the gloves were fucked up, and it just wasn't the ideal situation. And then like you said, they want you to try the gloves on like right before you go out. You're not doing it.
Yeah, like funny story about the curtain thing, right?
Yeah.
They put me and my opponent Trukon on the wrong sides, apparently. So like they had like blue corner on one side, red on the other, and then they had it backwards. So then we're literally like looking at each other right before we're about to fight. Yeah. This guy's like trying to give me this intense game dog face because I guess he's the Carolina game dog, right? So
is that his nickname?
He's giving me this intense face. Yeah, the Carolina game dog.
Pretty great.
That's his username on Instagram, actually. But yeah, no, like he's looking at me with all this intense look, and then I'm, giving him a little intense look back because why the hell not? And yeah, no, because like it was funny because like the carpet thing was like basically it was like I scraped my knee right before that fight on the carpet. Like you can see like in the second round when I locked that bottom side body triangle, you can literally see my left knee like have a red spot, and I was lucky because like. I was lucky the commissioner right before, like the Vaseline guy and the guy that checks your body before you fight, I was lucky he didn't see my knee, because if he did, like, there's a very likely possibility he could have stopped that fight because of an open wound. Like, he would be like, you can't walk out because you have an open wound. I'd be like, well, this is your fault.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Like, that would be like just call him out like that.
It's kind of like, before you fight, like, you don't want to see your opponent. It's kind of like,
it's weird.
Before it's kind of like, well, maybe one day you'll get married, right? Like when you get married, you're not supposed to see the bride, the day before, the day of,
like get her dressed or something.
Yeah. Like you're not supposed to see them until they walk out. Right. And this is kind of a similar situation because you start seeing each other at backstage, and usually I'd say promotions do a pretty good job of keeping fighters separate.
So most promotions do very good, but then like they'll put you in like opposite sides. Like for example, in BFL, they'll have like the dressing rooms. Like if people watching are familiar with the Harbor Event Center, right? This is a good example, right? they have two big change rooms, and they're on the opposite sides of like the back of the building.
Yeah.
Or the Vancouver Convention Center.
Yeah.
Like that's another one. Like it's the same thing. They have two rooms on the opposite sides, and they also give you specific arrival times, kind of like what I mentioned with Battlefield weigh-ins. They do the same thing with the fights.
Yeah.
So like they have specific fighters arrive at certain times, so then they avoid kind of, I guess, collisions.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that, but like they have you arrive at a specific time, which I mean I kind of like. It's kind of different, to be honest.
Seeing you fight in a couple of promotions, I actually got to say, like BFL, you know, I don't like the Harbor Convention Center. I think it's a dump, but
Oh yeah, I know. The Harbor sucks. I hate how they're going back.
Yeah.
That's what's making me sad.
Are they going back there?
Center. Yeah, their event in January 23rd, I believe it is back at the Harbor. Because I hate Harbor because like there's just awkward pulls.
It's awkward.
So, like I remember I was giving a couple tickets to a couple guys actually from OG, and they were telling me, they're like, why is there an awkward pull in the way? I'd be like, I don't know. They don't tell me.
Yeah. I remember at one of the last shows we were at the Harbor Convention Center, and there's fucking leaks coming from the ceiling and the fire alarm's going off for like an hour. Just
yeah, I know the story to why the fire alarm actually went off at that one event.
So somebody was blazing up or what?
Yeah, someone was blazing.
Somebody we know, right?
I don't know if I should say.
Yeah,
who,
don't say who. I
yeah.
think I know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a weird walkout down the escalator. It's just like it's not meant.
Yeah, I don't mind the escalator walk, but it's like, why isn't the escalator a part of the walk? Because like,
I know.
For example, like
why is it a part of
for
the
example,
walk?
like if you're because like the walk is so short in any regional MMA show, but I feel like a part of the walk should be that the escalator part, because like, you know, like you say for example the first fighter walks out, and when they're at like the Vaseline area about to hop in the cage, they have the next guy walking down that escalator, waiting at that bottom little pit, and then when the song changes, then the other guy walks out, which is not terrible, right? I know it's like, you know, I get how it's ran, but like have the escalator be a part of the walk, and then let like because like most of the time, like I'll use myself as an example. When I fought my last BFL fight, feels like forever ago now, but when I fought my last BFL fight against that Mexican David Briones, right? I remember walking down the escalator, and the crowd was already like, some of my friends and stuff saw me, and the crowd was already going kind of crazy when I was walking down that escalator. And have that not be a part of the walk is kind of little bit kind of weird.
Yeah, you almost want to like not be seen until they start playing your music. You know, like everyone can see you coming, and like it's not even your turn to walk out yet. It just kind of like it kind of ruins the climax
I'm walking out
of the
during
walkout.
Their walkout song.
Yeah,
which I mean I find a little weird, but apart from that, I mean.
So aside from all that bullshit with, you know, there's no warm up time, there's no warm up mats.
Nope.
They're being cunts about the gloves and everything.
Oh, geez, they were terrible.
The biggest criticism I think I have of the commission is just the complete lack of. They didn't insist that they needed to be present while you were doing things like going to the washroom, waiting to walk out. Like,
yeah, that too.
Like
that was another big one.
Like, they didn't watch you take a piss. Like you're like, oh, I got to take a piss. You go to the washroom. They're like, and you know, most of the time the commissioner comes with you, right? And you're like, you're like, okay, are you coming with me? And they're like, no. It's like, man, you could have tampered your gloves. You could have
put something in there.
You could have done anything, right? You could have taken a substance. Like that's why they're supposed to watch you like a hawk the entire time. I had never seen, you know, and we've been to Lethbridge to do some smaller shows.
Yeah.
Even there, the commissioner follows you, you know, and like
100%.
That's how it's supposed to be. That's why they're there, literally. And the guy is in the room, but he's not watching you piss. He's like, yeah, go ahead. And then right before a walkout, there was like a 20-minute period when we were kind of down in the kitchen area.
Yeah, like right before. So like that was like the one fight before mine.
Yeah.
We were like in this like little, really right by the kitchen, ironically.
Yeah.
And no one was there. So I'm like, is no one with the other guy? Like, I could realistically break a plate, shove it in my glove.
Oh, easily. Or we could have
Easily.
put weights in your gloves. Like I said, we could have
Yeah,
added like
got away with it.
you could have taken a substance or whatever. Like you're
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
only drink. I think you're only supposed to drink like water that they provide for
No,
you.
you only
right?
get the bottled water they give you.
Right. And so there was so much opportunity for us to cheat. And it makes like we didn't cheat, obviously. You know, it's not
Yeah,
how
but
you
for
win
them,
fights.
I mean,
But we're like,
that's like,
well, how do we know that he's being watched? How do we know that he is you know, how do we know that the commission's doing their job? So that I found super weird. They were like, okay, come with us. Okay, wait here. And then they just fucked off for like 20 minutes. And I was like, this is really
that was
weird.
like really weird. They just like followed. They just made us go down there, and like the weirder part was like the walkout itself. Ironically, as we're talking about walkouts, and they didn't. There was no one there to tell me when to walk out. I just heard the announcer say my name. I'm like, I heard my song play, and I'm like, you know what? It's time to go.
Yeah.
Like, funny story. Rodrigo, during his fight when he fought for the title in the main event,
Right.
apparently they tried to make him walk out too early, like before he wanted to, and then he was very persistent apparently because like we talked about it on the plane ride back because we were on the same plane.
Gotta
So
wait
we were
for the
talking
beat
about
to
it, and
drop.
he's like, "No, the song wasn't even playing. Like they didn't even announce him to go, and like they're like, all right, you gotta go,' and then like not till my song plays.
Well, yeah,
and then like
no.
they went back and forth for like apparently like a solid like 2-3 minutes, and he's like, not till my song plays, not till my song plays, and they're just like, and then when the song played, then he went out and then just went out there and just absolutely slobber knocked the guy.
Yeah,
Like,
that was a crazy finish.
that was a crazy finish main event. Like,
Yeah. So
they were both throwing big shots.
crazy, right? So given all those like obstacles that we've discussed, you know, things, let's just say that it wasn't the conventional pre-fight
Right.
preparation that you were accustomed to. And, you know, we can train as much as we want to prepare for these competitions, but that doesn't mean that things are going to go our way on game day in terms of how
No,
things
like,
are
it's not
set
what you're
up.
gonna think. It's not what you expect.
So how do you sort of address those sort of those outside obstacles that are kind of distractions, right? Like how do you address those things, and what's your mindset as they're happening and as you're preparing to fight?
Yeah, honestly, it's like, it's all these things are like, like we talked about, right? There's no warm up area, right? Like, but yeah, no, like the green room was a good way to describe it. Like we literally we did some stuff in the octagon, and honestly, like I found that more of a warm up than anything we did before.
Yeah.
Right. And I just found like it was definitely a different experience going into my biggest fight, but at the same time, like I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about the game in that fight, right? Like I learned what I can actually do and not like have everything go my way. Like sometimes some people are like, oh, they need this to go this way, but if it doesn't, then they absolutely just fumble, right? And for me to not have that, it's like that's like me being because we're at professional level now.
Yeah.
We're at the point where you have to be able to adjust accordingly. So I think considering being this early in my career and where I'm at, I really think I did a pretty good job at it considering all those things. And hey, we got a highlight reel buzzer beater armbar, which is pretty epic. So
Right.
I definitely like that for sure.
Right. Given how things were set up, if you knew that the next fight for Samurai was going to be exactly the same, like you go there and it's the same setup and it's less than ideal, would you compete there again?
I don't know. I mean, it depends. It depends. What are they gonna compensate me for? Right? Are they gonna give me because I feel like I'm at the point now where it's like with a win against this guy, right? I feel like I definitely deserve I feel like I should be fighting for a title somewhere, right? And if they give me that title fight against someone, whoever it is, and they pay well, right, for regional standards, and if they compensate me well for like flights and hotels and things like that, right, maybe. But considering all that, right,
Mhm.
again, that's a whole other topic. But if they do all those things, and then maybe I'd go back.
Yeah.
But apparently, like, the reason we didn't even get post-fight interviews, like, when I fought Lapore, we got post-fight interviews, but this one we didn't because apparently, like, they didn't want people swearing for the first time in the casino or whatever. And I'd be like, no one cares. Like,
There's no kids in here.
everyone, like, yeah, like, I don't, like, yeah, you have to be of age to be in a casino, so it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like post-fight interviews can really make you more marketable. I found, like, when I
100%.
fought Lapore,
And it
I
makes the
felt
show
like,
better.
yeah, right. Like that's the one thing I knock BFL for is like, or Battlefield for is because like they don't do post-fight interviews unless you're one of like the featured fights.
Right.
Like if you're on the poster, you'll get an interview, but everyone else doesn't. Right? I get like amateurs and stuff, maybe not, but everyone else I feel like should. Right? And like I feel like that's what can make you more of a name.
Yeah.
I found like when I fought Lapore, like the guys may have been booing me when I came in, but then the post-fight interview made them like me. And then when I fought again in November, I felt that's what made them like me, in my opinion.
Yeah. You know, I've heard Danaher talk about that, where he talks about how, especially in a sport like MMA, you have to be marketable. It's not just about how you perform.
Very.
It matters how you win, and it matters, you know, how you promote yourself.
How you hold yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to be like a GSP where it's always respectful and, you know, you're like the good, honest guy? Or are you going to be like Chael Sonnen where you're, you know, just like
Chael.
talking shit, or
Chael
Colby
is based.
Covington, right?
Colby.
But that does work. Like that does sell fights.
No, it
so
does. Right? Like
I feel like, you know, they're not really doing the fighters a service by not giving them the ability to do those post-fight interviews. Another thing too, let's just talk about how, you know, your armbar didn't get submission of the night, which is fucking crazy.
oh my god, that was terrible.
It's crazy. Like they gave it to
These
the guy
French
from
Canadians are
TriStar.
so biased.
And all respect to TriStar and Faraz Sahabi, obviously, like
100%.
legendary coach, but like, man, that's some home cooking. The guy got a rear naked against like a fighter who was like
14-11 fighter
14-11, right? That's the guy he
from
fought,
Mexico.
right? And you're against an undefeated guy. You get a late buzzer beater armbar from the guard, and somehow that's not sub of the night. That makes no sense in any.
I think if that was UFC, like if that card was a UFC card, I for sure would have got a 50K bonus.
100%.
100%. Right? Like
Yeah.
you don't
100%.
see arm bars. The thing is, you see rear naked chokes all the time, but I feel like a lot of what it is apart from the Montreal bias thing, I think a lot of it is because they want to get that guy, I won't say his name, but they want to get him back to the UFC because he fought on Contender Series, I think in 2021, and it didn't go his way.
Yeah.
And the guy that beat him, who got a contract on the UFC, hasn't done very well. So they're saying, hey, he's probably pretty close to that level. He wants to get back there. So I think they're trying to really push him to get back there, as weird as that is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is partly that. But, like, I don't know. It's like, even still, it's like, an armbar from guard should be a rear naked choke, right? Like, if I was the one that got the rear naked choke and he got the armbar, I would totally be cool if he got the submission of the night. But it was the other way around.
100%.
Right? And, you know, he's still, like, I feel like for us, Zahabi and the TriStar name had a bit of a kick to it, right? Because, like, the poster that Samurai MMA posted on their Instagram page had Faraz Zahabi in it, right? And I feel like that's what brings eyes to the page. And also, like, I feel like Alex Morgan, or screw it, I said his name. Alex Morgan, Faraz Zahabi.
Shots
they
fired.
have fairly big names in the whatever. Nothing personal, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right? But Alex Morgan, Faraz Zahabi, they have big names in the Montreal community, right? Everyone is like, kind of like, for example, how the Jiu Jitsu community in Vancouver, I feel like everyone knows Matt Kwan or knows of Matt Kwan, right?
Oh, stop.
I feel like I'm getting, I think so. I mean, you think of the top jiu-jitsu schools, you have to think of yours, right? I mean, there's obviously a lot of good schools, but you have to put yours in that mix. You know, you have to put myself in like one of the top rising fighters in Vancouver, right? So I feel like the Montreal market, I'm not as big yet, But hey, maybe with a good post-fight interview, I could have had it. You never know, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, it is what it is, right? Again, I don't think there's any money on the line, so I'm not overly mad about it. But I'll get it next time. I'll get it when it matters.
for sure. I got a question for you, just as an MMA fighter.
Yeah,
And I asked Jamie this question last week.
yeah.
Do you think that MMA fighters should train disciplines separately, or should they just do MMA? Like, what would yield the best results in the cage? Just doing mixed martial arts as a sport, or delving into the individual disciplines and training them
Like,
separately?
if this is this saying what I would do, or is this like a
Yeah, your
theoretical
opinion.
question? Yeah, yeah. I feel like definitely both have their place. I think definitely a good split is good because MMA is mixed martial arts, so you do need to get used to mixing the martial arts. But at the same time, if we train like just boxing or kickboxing or wrestling or jiu-jitsu, then there's a lot of nuances that we can look at and go really dive deeper into each individual sport. So then when we mix the martial arts together, then we'll be able to be a more complete fighter. I find that's like the best way to go about it because like you definitely have to do both for sure.
Mm-hmm. And like, so you think you should go and train wrestling, you should go and train jujitsu, you should train kickboxing and Muay Thai or whatever, and then also put it together on a different day where you're sort of blending everything together.
Yeah, I feel like me personally, like throughout the week is more like just doing like each individual thing. Like for example, like one day it'll be kickboxing, one day it'll be jiu-jitsu, one day it'll be boxing, one day it's this, whatever. And then I have one day at the end of the week where it's just an MMA day. Right? And that's really the only time we do pure quote unquote MMA.
Yeah.
But apart from that, like really it's just like a couple MMA days a week and then it'll be more split up throughout the typical week.
And why do you think that is a good way to train? Like, if the sport is MMA, doesn't it make sense that we just train MMA? Why do you think it's effective to include individual martial arts as part of your training?
I just find like each martial art is so complicated in its own way. I feel like if we just train MMA, we just look at look at it as like if you think of it like MMA is like a circle, right? Like you think of MMA as like a circle, right? You have three main cores of what MMA is, right? You have any stand-up fighting, right? And if you want to split this even smaller, you could go boxing, kickboxing, taekwondo, whatever, right? Any stand-up fighting martial art where you're on your feet. Then you have the second third of that circle, which is any form of wrestling, right? This is any form of taking your partner to the ground and holding them there against their own will. Like, there's freestyle wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling, collegiate wrestling, all that. And then last but not least, we have jiu-jitsu, right? And again, like, really there's only one form of jiu-jitsu, no gi. There's the gi too, but for MMA, I feel like no gi stuff applies more. And when you break it down like that, right, it seems like it's more holistic, right? And when you look at the holistic perspective of MMA, you don't look at these smaller technical things. Whereas if we have the same circle, but now we make the whole circle stand up fighting. Then we can really look at boxing, really look at kickboxing, really look at all these things. Same thing with wrestling, same with jiu-jitsu. So I think definitely splitting it up, like, especially when you're trying to develop your skill set, is better. But then when you're fighting, it's just about putting the skills that we've added and putting it into one martial art.
So under that logic, do you think that training in the gi could help you get better at MMA?
Potentially. I mean, like for me personally, it's just like different. It's difficult to find the time for it, right? Because like
Yeah.
you wanna develop certain skills for MMA, but if you have the time for the gi, it definitely can. Because at least you're on the main thing is you're on the mats, right? If you're on the mats training, I think most forms of martial arts are good, unless it's like hard style forms. Then then maybe it's detrimental. But apart from that, like I think it's definitely a different way to go about MMA, really.
Okay, so we've talked about how we think that training, because I agree with you. I think individual martial arts, you get to see like the nuances of those arts, and then it's up to
Yeah, they're
you.
very complicated. That's why.
Yeah,
Like,
it's kind of up to you to now learn them and combine them into a context for MMA, right? But what about competing in different martial arts? Do you think that that can be beneficial for your MMA development? Like you're going to do a kickboxing tournament, you're going to do a jiu-jitsu tournament, you're going to do a wrestling tournament. Like does that have uh does that have, is that also beneficial for an
benefits.
MMA fighter?
Definitely can. It depends because like I feel like a lot of people, if you're gonna compete in something else, you're gonna devote all your time into that one thing,
Yeah.
and then your other skills will kind of fall off,
Yeah.
right? Like if you were gonna do like
It's a
a
commitment, right?
kickboxing fight or
If you're
something,
going to do it,
right? Like
if you're going to
if
do
you're
a
gonna do a kickboxing
competition,
fight, you're not gonna do jiu-jitsu to prepare for it.
it's a big commitment, and then that's going to start like it almost takes away all the time that you need for the overall goal, which is being a better MMA fighter.
Yeah, right. Because MMA, like when you mix all the martial arts together, it makes each individual martial art slightly different than its pure form, right? So, like for example, in MMA, you see two kickboxers fight, one may be better than the other, but the guy that's not as good can still get it done just with a couple small tactical changes. And the reason for that is a couple different things, right? One, for example, the gloves are a lot smaller. You're going from like I don't know, 10-ounce kickboxing gloves to 4-ounce MMA gloves.
Yeah.
The MMA glove is literally like if you made a fist with your hand, the glove will be slightly wider than your hand. Unless it's a samurai glove, then it'll be twice the size. But um, pretty much like those strikes can get through the smallest windows. And if you're just used to kickboxing gloves coming your way, then you're used to the pillows just being able to stop the strike from coming through. But in MMA, it's a little bit different. Same thing with wrestling, right? Another example is if you're wrestling somebody, right? When you're wrestling, you typically have a very low stance, right? You're very low to the ground. It's very easy to grab your partner's legs, right? But in MMA, where strikes are involved, if you're bent that low, you're just going to get kneed in the
Yeah.
head. You're going to get uppercuts to the face, right? It's not a good time. So again, it's a different martial art, right? So you can see guys that are lower level wrestlers take down higher level wrestlers in MMA. Plus the fact there's a cage in the way, which makes it a whole nother ball game, whole nother topic. And that as well, same thing in jiu-jitsu, right? They even say my fight, for example, the guy was used to being on his back, right? He's throwing strikes at me from when I'm on top of him, right? Some guys may not be used to that, right? Some guys will be doing their normal jiu-jitsu, taking shots, and sometimes those can cut you brutally, right? Sometimes those can even hurt you if the guy gets a good amount of power behind
Yeah.
him, and it can change your game and you lose them.
Mm-hmm. Um, where exactly did you get your wrestling chops from? Because, I'm an okay wrestler. I'm not a wrestler by trade. I usually pull guard. But you never did wrestling in high school, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like you were never on a wrestling
Not
team.
really. Like I thought about doing it in school, but I never committed to it.
So how exactly did you
But
become such a dominant MMA wrestler?
honestly, a lot of it is just mixing the martial arts together, right? Like a lot of it I kind of learned like on my own and I practiced and stuff.
Like
Like
self-taught,
for
basically.
example, kind of in a way, like I would watch like some of
Because your dad's not
Danaher's
a wrestler.
instructionals and no, he has wrestling, but it's more of like because like he was a kickboxing champion, right?
Yeah.
So like he had like he was an MMA champion too, but he was his background was in kickboxing, right? Everything his MMA game was revolved around letting his kickboxing be as free as possible,
Yeah.
right? So like kind of the circle theory I talked about earlier was if you have the circles of MMA, right? Rather than having it split into thirds, everything was devoted to helping his kickboxing game, right? Everything jiu-jitsu wise was about getting him away safely to getting to his feet to let his kickboxing fly. Same thing with the wrestling, right? Everything was about defending shots and getting to his feet so he could let his strikes fly. But in terms of like most of the stuff was like mostly Danaher stuff like things like Danaher's wrestling instructionals and all that, and a couple other guys too. I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but a lot of that was mostly from that, and then a lot of it was just mixing it together, honestly, right?
Yeah.
Mixing the thirds of the circle together, so that it just became one kind of mixed bag, really.
Yeah, when we play around on the feet a little bit, I'm shocked at your ability to time things, like the way that you can time a shot or even strikes. You know, we haven't really seen a lot of your striking in the cage, but the way that you blend it with your shots, I think, is a big reason why you're able to get in on your partner's hips so much. Is your timing, right, and your ability to see.
I think a lot of it. Well, a lot of it, I feel like, is a lot of like distance, right? Like I know I haven't really. Most of the guys I've fought have been strikers, right? So it kind of makes sense. Hey, if you're fighting a striker, the typical rule in MMA is you're going to take them down, right? And I haven't really fought a guy that had a high level wrestling game yet, right? Like that Lapore guy was probably the highest level grappler I've fought, I'd say, or he was the most well rounded, but it's the same thing, right? It just showed that my game was on that level, right? So if you get a guy with better wrestling than that, then maybe we can potentially look at, then we'll modify the game plan, and then you'll see, oh, well, now this guy can strike really well.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just like, the martial arts I find are very different, right? Like, I've found that, like, kickboxing is very visual, right? So, like, kickboxing is very, like, if you can't see things well, there's no point in really trying to do anything, right? Being able to make very split-second decisions with your eyes is very crucial in any stand-up form of fighting, right? Whereas in wrestling and jiu-jitsu, right, it's very about gripping your partner in certain ways, breaking their body mechanically, and then taking advantage of that, right? Like any form of wrestling, jiu-jitsu, all that is very based off of how can you move your partner, how can you off-balance them, and then mechanically break their body down to end up getting your preferred position or submission.
Yeah. Okay, before we get out of here, who's on your radar? Who do you want to fight next? Don't be afraid to name names.
I don't even know any names off the top of my head, to be honest with you. I'm just going out there, just see what happens, really. Like, I know there's the January 23rd event for BFL. I'm not on that card, unfortunately, but maybe the one after that, right? March, April. Apparently Mac actually vacated the title, so I guess that's not really an option anymore. But again, it's not really the names I care about. It's just about getting performances that will get me towards the UFC, really, right? Maybe get like, a couple more solid wins, right? Maybe show a couple more things in there that I know I can do. And then from there, I feel like the UFC is right there. So in terms of opponents, I don't know. I just think if that belt's vacant, I'm the guy that's going to be fighting for it. I don't know against who. Probably maybe some guy from Carolina. Never know. Someone based.
Yeah. I wonder if Trukon is based. Probably.
I feel like Trucon's very based.
He probably should
like,
be.
Even like, I know this is a little off topic as well, but or we're backtracking more so. But when we talked about the event, right? And we were talking, like, I remember me and Trukon were actually talking after the fight by the doctors. And then this guy's telling us to move and all this. And I'm like, man, you don't get to talk. Like, you have us warming up on carpets. Like,
yeah, you're talking about the commissioner, right?
What to do. Yeah. And then they sent us upstairs. And it'd be like, we almost got lost, actually, finding the stairs.
Yeah.
We were like talking, we were trying to like mock a Gordon instructional, calling it systematically finding the staircase or whatever.
Systematically finding the green room again.
The green room.
Yeah, you were having like a heart to heart with Trukon after like a fight. Like these two guys just went to war, and then this old fucking French man is like, "Okay, let's go, guys. Come on, let's fucking move here." Or like,
it sounded like
dude, shut your mouth.
Stipe and Joe Biden right there.
Yeah, I know. That's what they sounded like, and I'm just like, dude, like, are you, after all the shitty job you guys have done, you're gonna tell my fighter to not talk to his opponent after he just won? Like, go fuck yourself, man. Seriously.
Yeah, no, that was a little bit kind of
Like no
absurd.
warm-up mats and
There was no
no
nothing.
time before to go warm up. Like I'll say at least BFL has mats there and
No,
there's a lot of
BFL's warm-up rooms are
space.
very good. I'll give them that. And the thing that I'll give Samurai too is like their production's very good. Like
Yeah,
if you're gonna watch from home a Samurai MMA
it
event,
looks
it's
good.
a very good promotion, right? Like
Yes.
the whole thing, like the announcers, the post-fight interviews, the fights themselves are good as well, and like the octagon actually looks pretty cool. Whereas like with BFL, the warm-up rooms are very good, right? BFL's got good production and all that too, but the warm-up rooms for BFL, like you're gonna be ready to go, right? Unless
Yeah,
you're irresponsible and you show up 20 minutes late, then that's your fault. But
right.
BFL actually provides you with an opportunity to actually get ready to fight, which is actually pretty good.
Cool, man. All right. Well, and I also want to mention everyone, as of this recording, it is the 2nd of December as of this recording.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Adam got his brown belt, which is long overdue, I think, considering what he's been doing in the cage lately. And so congratulations to you. And
Thank you. And you got
hopefully
your second degree that day, so that's also pretty
I
cool
did,
too.
yes, I did. But I didn't have to do anything for it. I just had to get older, and now I get my second degree or whatever.
Well, yeah, that was what I was in. Because I remember like Professor Rob talking about like how like as a black belt you just get your degrees with time, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's true.
what was that like? Is it just like after like
That's
what's
true.
like the set time if that's
So in
the appropriate
IBJJF,
question?
once you get your black belt, 3 years go by, you get your first degree.
That's what it
3
is.
more years
Okay.
go by, you get another degree, and then it's like
Yeah.
5 years, and then like another 5 years, and then like 8 years, some shit like that. I don't know where they come
Jeez.
up with these numbers. It's IBJJF shit, right? Like if we're gonna allow them to control what is a promotion throughout like an organization is going to be able to dictate how a sport or how a martial art is promoted, then I guess that's what we're doing here. But yeah, I mean it's not really anything. I don't have to learn another day in my life and I would still keep getting degrees.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But hopefully in the near future you'll get a gold belt. We'll just keep doing what we're doing, I guess, right?
No, exactly. 2024, yesterday just got a brown belt, and then hopefully in the first quarter of 2025, we get a gold belt. So that's the plan.
Awesome. So, yeah, anything else you want to add before we wrap this up, Adam?
Nothing really. Just make sure you follow the Instagram, primetime_era. I post all my fight stuff there. If you want to follow along the journey to the UFC, definitely give that a follow. And yeah, that's it.
What about any sponsors? What about your dad's gym? Do you want to plug that for a sec?
Yeah. Posener's MMA. So the post shout outs to everyone at Posener's MMA. Well, I'll run through the team. Screw it. Everyone at Posener's MMA, right? Everyone at your school, On Guard Jiu Jitsu, Universal MMA, Animal Boxing. So that's mostly for the team. And then as for the sponsorship stuff, we got Uppercuts Barbershop, Uppercuts Tattoo Shop. I guess that counts as one. Shout outs to my first ever sponsor, Combat Cartel. Made my pretty cool fight shirts. You can check those out, combatcartel.ca. Code Primetime will save you 10% off. Shout outs to Sente Athletics. They made my pretty cool fight shorts, so check those out. You'll see those on Fight Pass, and as well as on my Instagram too. As well as Zubair Boxing, right? Fitting I got some custom Primetime gloves too, which is pretty cool. And so now I'm going to the guys that helped me get through my training camps. First, we'll thank Magnum Supplements as well as Maximus Maple Ridge and Cutting Edge Nutrition. These guys helped me with my supplementation, helped me get through training day to day and training camps as well. Sweet Success, Protein Donuts, check them out. That is it. If I'm forgetting any, I apologize. I'll probably screen record this video and make an extra shout out. But if you
What
did
about the
make this video,
CMOS?
yeah, CMOS too. Yeah, thanks to Longevity Coach V Vernus for the top quality CMOS. Right, pretty cool stuff. And that's it. Right, I did not prepare to do that, but I think I did pretty good for memory.
Yeah, you got a lot of people to shout out, right? A lot of people are
Big
investing
team.
in you, and they want to see you do well. And please just send me those links, and I'll include them in the show notes so everybody can sort of see that stuff and have access to your promo codes and everything.
Yeah.
All right, Adam Posener, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, and see you in the gym next, I guess, buddy.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, guys, remember the Everyday Jiu Jitsu podcast, everything you need to know about Jiu Jitsu. If you want to support the show, check out the links in the bottom. See you later.